So first we're going to look in here, and we are going to, we're going to say your name.
Ray Bouderau.
No.
Of the Rockaway Boudreaux, son of Mary, brother to Darren. You might have heard of us.
Stopping by today to talk to us here on Unscripted with Nell Daly. You just introduced yourself a lot better than I could.
This is exactly where you need to come for credible life advice. You ask the questions, and we're going to answer them.
This guest, how do I explain Ray? So I met Ray a few weeks ago, and I was totally taken with his story, I have to say. I had no idea what to expect when I met you, and then I was like, wait, what are you? You work in construction, but you produce movies, and it's like super cool, and you're in recovery. Can I say that? Is
Sure.
that okay? Okay, good. We can talk about recovery on the show.
Sure.
I love that we can talk about recovery. And how long have you been sober for?
15 years.
15 years now. And so I just wanted to bring you in because you have some really interesting ideas on failure and on your film. Your production company is called Living the Dream.
Yes.
Why did you name it Living the Dream? Let's start right there.
Well, once you tattoo it on your arm, you have to kind of own it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Did you tattoo it when you were sober, or
Yeah.
you were already in sobriety at the
Yeah.
point? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, living the dream to me is a state of mind. You know, that's my answer. It's like, you know, how you doing? Living the dream. You know, because to me, every day above ground's a good day.
Why are you so freaking positive? Have you always been this positive?
No. Because there's absolutely no money in the alternative. There's no money in it.
Say that again.
So, why am I so positive? Because there's no money in the alternative. Positive energy creates positive results. Negative energy creates negative results. I mean, and life's not without its complications. It's not without its trials and tribulations.
You faced personal tragedy a few times over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, it's, you know, tomorrow's promised to none of us.
Right.
None of us.
Okay, so there's the famous psychologists who come out of like Harvard and UPenn came up with this like whole positive psychology movement. And what you're speaking to me is of that movement where it was all about positive thinking. But where is there room then for being moved, for feeling deeply or feeling sadness? Like, do you feel really terrible certain days? Like, do you ever wake up going like, I don't want to do this, or I feel really crappy, or
Fake it till you make it.
So that's your anecdote for that.
Yeah, because, you know, I'm going to get jammed up. I'm going to get, you know, like, I'm going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to get, you know, I'm going to get put in a bad mood, though I don't have to stay there.
Right, that you have faith it'll shift back out.
Well, and it's really a choice. It's not, you know, it's not that it's just magically going to go away. I'm going to recognize it hopefully in short time. I'm going to realize that none of it matters. I'm healthy, my kid's healthy. The rest of it, smoke and mirrors. Doesn't matter.
Right, okay. And so you can speak personally to this because I sometimes when you have somebody on the show like this who's like super positive, you're like, okay, well, have they ever really faced something hard? But you and your daughter recently went through something really difficult over the last few years, which was...
Yeah, my wife passed last summer. We were separated a number of years prior to her passing, but she was the only woman I ever loved.
And you were still very close with her.
Yeah, we traveled together, and you know, we loved each other dearly. We just didn't get along that well. And she passed a year ago, July 1st.
And how did you deal with the grief? Were you already in this sort of living the dream, positive mindset?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, and how did I deal with the grief? I cried like everybody else. I had a complete emotional breakdown behind the wheel of my Ford F-150. This grown man, construction guy, you know, on my way down to the funeral home downtown, where she was cremated, to sign some papers and stuff the day after it. And you know, like, just breakdown.
Right.
Like I've never broken down before in my life. Like just uncontrollable. For a good 45 minutes. And then I turned the truck back on and I kept driving.
Mm-hmm.
And showing up for life and learning that every day is a gift. If she taught me nothing, she taught me that. And then and I went a bit off the rails.
After that happened.
Yeah, I was a bit lost. And
you acted out a little bit in certain ways, as we do.
Yeah, but the reality is that it's just we're all going to make our mistakes. We're just going to keep showing up one foot in front of the other, and I focused on taking care of my daughter to the best of my ability.
Did you feel it sometimes with grief? They say that you sort of feel a shift. Sometimes people feel it overnight. They're in grief, and then all of a sudden 6 months later they wake up and they're like, okay, I feel better. Like there's been a shift of energy, or you've worked through something on some level within the body or spiritually or emotionally. Did you feel that, or was it a gradual kind of coming out of this stage?
For me, I didn't feel like that automatic shift. But it's so hard to see yourself. Ask my best friend,
right?
Or ask somebody else
actually he's still
that was around watching me, and maybe they can pinpoint it. But for me to look at myself, like if I was watching you go through it, I could probably pinpoint it better than myself.
Right.
For me, I don't see it. I could see it in my daughter. I could see her transition in the stages of grief. From the anger to the and the different and then her come through it, but it still comes on you in waves. I was in DMV, changing a title to her car. Complete breakdown at the desk at DMV, and this was months after.
You had the breakdown.
Yeah, DMV on the line.
Just something hit you.
The car broke, and I, taking it into, because I was trying to keep the car for my daughter.
Yeah.
And taking it into the shop, and they're like, oh, well, do you know the history of the car? Not my car. Never even drove the damn thing. Well, do you know, and then just there, and those memories come back, and those feelings come through, and, but you embrace them. I don't run from my feelings today. I'm gonna cry. It's okay.
What amazes me about grief is what they call, there's a technical term for it that's I'm missing right now, but it's the memories, the resurfacing of memories that you didn't even know you had. The people I've really grieved for in my life, I'll be in yoga class. Yoga kind of opens you up to this stuff, so you kind of know going in there, especially some of my yoga instructors play super sad music, and the next thing you know, you're on your mat, you're weeping, right? And downward dog. But it's amazing how the memories will just kind of hit you out of nowhere.
I take hot yoga, and and it's new to this year, and it's crazy. Especially
what comes out?
At one point, my wife was screaming at me at the end of the class in my head. Yeah. And it is powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling our feelings and going through things is the only way to, and it's accepting it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the philosophy only two things are ever going to happen. Either I'm going to get over it, or I'm going to get under it.
I just have a joke I want to say. Sometimes I tell my patients the easiest way to get over somebody is to get under somebody else. Totally inappropriate segue, but
distraction.
And it's not what therapists normally say, but I do, because it's funny, and sometimes you have to cut the cord.
But it's also distraction.
Yeah.
I can keep myself entertained and distracted.
A reaffirmation.
Yeah, I can keep myself entertained and distracted with the best of them.
Yes.
To me though, it all goes to, I believe the universe has I was never gonna get.
Yeah, were you super spiritual always? Were you always a super spiritual person?
So no, so I always believed there was something.
What were you raised?
I was raised Catholic, but I'm not Catholic.
Right.
I went to Catholic Catholic school. I was an altar boy.
Me
you
too.
know.
Not an altar boy, but yeah, me too.
But I believed 8th grade science class. You know, chlorophyll. You know, like, all right, wait, let me get this straight. So leaves have chlorophyll. They absorb carbon dioxide and expel oxygen. And without it, like, the planet wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, the Earth spins on its axis.
Oh, so you started believing in science and evolution.
Well, no, but I started believing in there was something. It was all too perfect.
Oh.
It was all too perfect.
Interesting.
That
The grand design was too much. That
like,
there must be
even
something.
going back to the Big Bang, two stars colliding, creating the universe. All right, where'd they come from?
Right.
You know, so for me, there always was that piece of there was something. Now that being said, I believed there was something. I just didn't believe that God, I'm going to call it God, took an active participation in our lives. Mm-hmm. But that being said, you know, I'm an Irish kid from an Irish town, and everybody had footprints in the sand hanging somewhere in their home.
Yes.
So
for those of you who don't know what this is, Footprints in the Sand is this poem about there's only one set of footprints on the beach, and the person asked basically, Jesus, where were you when I was going through a hard time? And he responds, I was the one carrying you, meaning those are his footprints.
Correct.
Yes.
So and it always meant something to me. I read it like, you know, every house I ever walked into, but I didn't know what it meant until you know, when I got sober and I entered a 12-step program of recovery, and I got in touch with my own sense of spirituality. Mm-hmm. And then oh yeah, I was carried. You know, I was carried. You know, and that really affirmed that there was a God. I'll say, or a power of the universe taking care of me. And why me? And why do bad things happen to good people? I don't know. But it's what I believe and it's how I feel. And that was the starting point. You know, really 16 years ago, my spiritual journey started. And it's kind of just been evolving. It's a work in progress. Like, you would say something and I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna believe that too.
Like, well, yeah, as you're talking, I'm like, wow. So, you know, the knock on AA is that it is a spiritual program and people don't necessarily like that. Where, here's how I feel about it, and you totally, right, I drink the AA Kool-Aid. I'm not in sobriety or in recovery. I'm from an Irish family. It's like the one thing I haven't had to deal with personally myself, although I have many family members. But I believe in AA enormously for my patients, and I'm a huge believer in Al-Anon. And for me, though, it's like, whether you believe it or not, I don't really care if it keeps you sober. And P.S., the people who stick with it and sort of go down what some would say is the super spiritual path, or the more sort of belief, have that you know, system of belief in their lives are getting better every day. And there's something slightly magical about their lives to me. Probably because they should have been dead in a way if they had kept going down the path they were going. And also, we know now, we didn't study this when I was getting a degree. We sort of denied that spirituality is a huge part of our psychological makeup and how we feel about our lives every single day.
99.8% of the world can't be wrong.
And not only that, but it's really changed in my field, and now we know that the people, I always know I'm done with treatment with somebody when we start talking about spirit. Because they've evolved to this place of their lives have gotten better, the symptoms have calmed down, whatever things we needed to change, whether it's in the body or with their life, has happened. They've gotten better, and we start talking about the sense of like, okay, so what's my purpose here, and what's the grand design, and is there something else out there? And they start to feel a sense of levity about their life and lightness when they connect to spirit. Now when people come in, I start with spirit. I start with spiritual health before anything else.
Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, you know, it changed my life. Just that shift of being positive.
What was your rock bottom moment? Did you have a rock bottom?
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, but what was the one that you were like, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. Like this, I'm done. Okay, I've done this.
You know, so I was always a worker. I was a poor
Yeah,
kid.
so tell me.
I
So
was a
you're
poor
from where?
kid.
From where are you
I was
from?
from Rockaway, Queens. I was a poor kid, didn't want to grow up to be a poor man. You know, my first job.
What did Dad do growing up?
My parents were divorced when I was very young.
Okay.
When I was like 1.
Did you have a relationship with Dad?
I did. You know, he was a construction worker. He had a wife, and I had 2 older half sisters. They lived out in Bayside, Queens, and I grew up in Rockaway, Queens with my mother.
And Rockaway was like the Irish.
The Irish Riviera.
Yes.
Yeah, we had playland, and
Right.
you know, it was drinking on the beach. In
No,
the
I
summer,
mean my
drinking in the
grandparents
park
are
in the winter.
from. They came over through Ellis Island, and my mom grew up really poor in the South Bronx. And every summer, her family would save as much as they possibly could just to take them to the Rockaways for like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rent a bungalow down in
Yeah,
the Rockaways.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom grew up on the Upper East Side, and they would.
She's Irish also.
Yeah, and they would summer down in Rockaway, you know, in bungalows, and then back in '69, my grandmother moved down there, and that's where I was born and raised. So I was a poor kid, didn't want to grow up to be a poor man, always on the hustle. You know, before I got my working papers, it was walking dogs and walking kids to school and babysitting and the paper route. And then when I got my working papers at 14, it was a dishwasher at the Sizzler. And I stayed in the restaurant business predominantly between the age of 14 and 29. Like, you know, always, I loved the instant gratification. I was good at it. You know, like it's just like, you know, I wasn't scholastically inclined. You know, plus I was poor. It was like I knew I wasn't going to college. You know, it was all about working.
Did you finish high school?
I did, but senior year in high school, I went to school from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I worked a 40-hour week at a pizzeria.
Amazing.
Because you know, I was smart enough to pass my classes. It's just you know I wasn't going to college.
Yeah.
You know, and I loved the money and the hustle. You know, and like I said, I stayed in the restaurant business. I tried other things. You know, I joined the army. I was a cop. I was.
How long were you in the army for?
Oh, a minute. Same with being a cop. I mean,
you were like,
you know, I would be living vicariously through television and movies. Like you know, I joined the army because I watched this movie, and it wasn't even a good army movie.
What movie was it?
It was called Cadence with Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen and Lawrence Fishburne. It was about guys in an army prison. But I'm watching this movie, and then a week later I'm on a plane to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. You know, just.
That's how you live at the time.
I'm not impulsive, but I'm decisive.
Yeah, well, you felt called. You were like, okay, that's
like,
a great.
I had nothing better to do, so I was like, I'll do that.
And that didn't last
And
long.
for me, it was all about getting out of the street.
Yeah.
You know, it was all about just you know creating a life and you know doing something and not being poor. You know, it was you know and then but I kept going back to the restaurant business because I was good at it and I liked it.
Bartending.
Well, when I stopped being a cop, city cop.
How long were you a cop for?
18 months. You know,
So you do all the hard part. You had to get through all the training.
yeah, I went
and
through
you're like,
the army.
the actual reality
I went
of
through
this.
basic training. I went through jump school, and
Was
then.
that from watching the movie about cops too?
Well, that was because I grew up watching 21 Jump Street
That's
in LA
right.
Law.
Okay, yeah.
And I was gonna be like an undercover Johnny Depp type, and I was gonna go to night
the
school and be
reality
a
isn't
Jimmy
like
Smith
that.
type lawyer, and that was the plan. You know, but you know, I loved the dream of it, but the actuality of it wasn't so much. I was making $850 every 2 weeks.
Right.
And coming from the restaurant business at 21, I mean, the first year
You can
I was
make
a
that.
cop. The first year I was a cop, I ran my credit card debt up to like $25,000.
Oh God,
Because
God love our officers because they don't get paid enough.
Yeah, and I was broke.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, and then after that I left and went back to the restaurant business, and then I decided Cocktail came out, and I was like, I'm not gonna wait tables or manage restaurants
That's
anymore.
the Tom Cruise restaurant.
Yeah.
It's Tom Cruise
I'm
movie.
just gonna bartend.
Yes.
So I
Because
made
he made it hot.
Yeah, I made a funny
Sexy.
resume. I got a job bartending here in the city. Next thing you know, I got a job bartending on Bell Boulevard in Queens where I lived, and then I got a job out in the Hamptons. And I was just like, and then I spent 5 years bartending out in the Hamptons in the summer, and then in the winter off season, I did a year down in South Beach. I owned a small restaurant.
Oh boy.
And then I was bartending here in the city off season, you know, in the winter, and you know, it was this. I had blonde highlights and a diamond earring, you know. It's like.
So wait, how did you make the transition then? Like, what was the rock bottom moment to say like sobriety and I'm gonna get out of the restaurant business?
Drinking became more important than working and hustling. You know, that was it. And
you started getting really addicted to the alcohol.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
drank for effect. It's
Right.
not. I wasn't a social drinker ever.
Right.
You know, and for me, it was you know, it was divine intervention, truth be told. So it all started when I was 25, a kid I grew up with, and my mother had gotten sober a few years earlier. And when I was 25, I was working to drink and drinking to work, and you know, I was making a lot of money, but I didn't have anything. And I was like, I'm gonna take a break. And I didn't drink for 90 days, and life got better. Life got good enough to drink again.
Right. Of
And-
course.
And I
yeah.
went back out, and then a year later, I got in some trouble, and I stopped drinking again for 90 days. Life got good enough to drink again, you know, and then a year and a half later, again, like I got into some trouble, and you know, so it was progressive. But then at 29, I got a phone call, and I was a hot mess at this point. And you know, the call was this kid I grew up with, and the call just said, "I just called to see how you were doing." I was like, "Wow, how am I doing?"
Ooh.
And I realized, like at that moment, I was a 29-year-old mess. That I owned my first restaurant when I was 26 years old. I'm like, how did I get here? Like, you know, and I because I was $25,000 in debt, I was 3 months behind on my rent. I couldn't show up for work 3 days in a row, and I'm like, what?
This is not a good look.
This is not a good look for me. And then you know, I called him up and I said, and I realized.
Did you say to him? Were you authentic and said, you know what? I'm not doing so hot.
I was totally authentic. I called him up and I said, I'm not going to get out alive.
Ooh.
I knew at that time, if I kept like working to drink and drinking to work, wasn't no longer my worst case scenario. I knew, like, if I didn't get out,
I'm gonna kill myself.
that wasn't that I was gonna kill myself, but if I was gonna die in the street like a dog with nothing, and I wasn't gonna die right then. You know, I just knew, like that. I knew with that phone call, and you know, he said, you know, go to bed, sleep it off. Tomorrow, get up and go to a meeting. That's what I did. You know, and I met my wife.
After many
And-
meetings in the rooms.
And she, yeah, and well, we, you know, yeah, we fell madly in love with each other. And she got pregnant, and we had a kid, and like life happened, and you know, just one day after the other, you know.
How did you transition then into construction?
So, I was actually in construction prior to stopping drinking part-time.
As a construction worker, like were you working like, you know, actually like on a team with guys?
Yeah,
doing
part-time. At 27, my grandmother thought I was too old to be a professional bartender.
Right. So she sort of said like,
she got
can you
my-
please do something?
She got my uncle to get me a union book, and I started working for him part-time. And I was still tending bar, doing both. And I say part-time like I was part-time.
Yeah.
But I worked, and I went to my apprentice program. I went to school because honestly, it was across the street from my house. So it was all just very convenient. And I was never going to be a construction worker. I was never going to stay in construction. But when I stopped bartending, and I needed a job.
Yes.
So you know, construction was there, and I was good at it. You know, I worked hard, and I moved up quickly.
You like the physical labor?
No.
See, I really like physical labor.
Yeah,
I've never had to actually make my entire life.
I definitely didn't hate it. I like the hours, I like the money it paid me, and I like the fact I was good at it.
Right.
And I when I started showing up every day for work, I was good at it, and I moved up quickly. I worked for 4 years after I stopped drinking, and I started my own company. And then, you know, I got my first contract with this guy named Donald O'Sullivan from Novelist Contracting, and next thing you know, I had 3 high-rises going my first year. And
That's the thing that's remarkable to me. So how do you go from starting your own construction? Because so many people, when I asked you this question a few weeks ago, you were like, I don't know, I just worked really hard. And I'm like, damn, well, I've worked really hard at some, you know, stuff in my life. And
so
like, how does that
I
happen?
would never say I'm an iron
so
worker.
many, yes.
I do reinforced steel for concrete. I'm a local 46 metallic wire lather, they call us. And I worked for a company that did what I do. And then I got the idea. It was 2006, and the city was on fire with work. And I thought, you know, there's got to be a new company starting. I can just hook up with them and do their work. Just, you know, and that's exactly how it happened. Now, I wouldn't say I was the best lather. I wouldn't say I was the best construction worker. I wouldn't say any of that. The difference between me and, say, other guys is I gave my notice. I gave my notice and I took the shot. I was fearless. Because for me, it was the worst case scenario. I would get the same job I had with the company I had with another company.
Right.
Like I wouldn't start at the top, but I'd get up to the top quick enough. I was good at it.
So you just had the balls, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, and I took my shot, and it worked out.
And then you started getting your own contracts.
Yeah.
And started building skyscrapers.
I hooked up with this company, and they were relatively new into the concrete business, and I started doing their work, and I started building high rises here in the city, doing the same thing I did for the other company, just doing it for myself now. And then I got the opportunity and the privilege to build the World Trade Center Memorial.
I was going to say, you did, right? So when you say that, you're part of the building process, like they have different contractors doing different things, so you put
owner
the steel
hires a GC hires a concrete company hires me.
Got it.
And Novelist Contracting, again, the company I worked for, they got the contract and I bid it, and they gave me the contract to do reinforced steel for it, and it was probably the greatest honor I've ever had. I had a connection to that. I had seen it firsthand happen from the planes hitting. I went down afterwards. I volunteered.
Were you downtown that day?
Yes, on the Hudson, on the other side of the Hudson. I was working in Jersey on the shore, and it was, we were having coffee. My cousin and I, we had just come down the building, and we seen smoke coming out of the first tower, and it was like, and I knew, like, a small plane must have hit it.
Yeah.
And just as we're sitting here, we were standing there on the water, and I was like, where does he think he's? And just as I said it, the second plane went through, and me and my cousin ran to the PATH train. We must have caught the last PATH train back
into the city.
Yeah. It was crazy, and then when we got out, 6th Avenue was a parking lot, and we started walking uptown, because I lived uptown, and we heard about the Pentagon and the other plane, and and then the first tower fell as we were walking uptown, and and then we went down and volunteered and dug until they threw us off a few days later. So I had definitely a connection to it.
Did you know kids who had become firefighters and cops from your old neighborhood who passed in the World Trade Center?
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Rockaway's a big fireman town.
Huge fireman town. Yeah. Okay, so this is just a remarkable life. So you go into construction, and then how did you get into the movie business?
So
dynamic. So dynamic.
So, my whole life, if I wasn't working,
you were watching
or
movies?
out, I was home. You knew where to find me.
You're right.
I was home
studying film and movies in your own way.
Misspent youth.
Yeah. I don't know. It's paying off now, dude.
Well, we'll see. More will be revealed. We'll see if I'm as smart as I think I am. So, in all those years in my 20s when I was bartending, that's how I was going to make my way in the world. I was going to get discovered behind the bar and be the next Bruce Willis.
Yeah, of course.
Harrison
Ford, he was discovered like fixing someone's sink.
He was a carpenter.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
And,
why can't that happen to all of us?
And I would even go as far as get headshots done, though I'd never mail them out.
Yeah, of course.
I would sign up for acting class as soon as they told me to learn a monologue. You
like,
can't teach acting. I'm out of here.
Oh, right.
Because
resistance
because back then I'd rather dream the dream than live the reality.
Right.
And a few years ago, I realized that I wasn't getting any younger or better looking, and I still had a little fire in my belly and a little hustle left, and I was going to take a run at making movies.
How many movies have you made now?
So I've been a part of 7 films in the last 2 years.
And so you said something remarkable that I want repeated here on the show, which was when you're about to get involved in sending out your last movie to other people and try to get the film or the new movie that you've written. You're sending.
I didn't write it.
You didn't write, no. Not Amelia Estevez's movie.
Oh, Entisar.
Okay,
yeah,
which is this new project that you have going, that you wrote, which I saw the trailer for, which I think is going to be a huge blockbuster. I'm calling it.
I co-wrote. I created the content. I wrote a treatment.
I'm calling it. It's going to be huge. Yeah. It's going to be huge. And but I said, well, how do you know who to send it out to? And you're like, I don't. I don't. You're like me, where it's like, okay, well, how do I have this vision, I have this dream, people don't realize. And I had seen this in my office over and over again. Some people are really good at having the vision. Some people are really good at figuring out like step A, step B, step C. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm good at either or. I'm just unafraid to say, okay, I have this idea. How do I start executing it? And you have to feel your way around in the dark quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right? You just start picking up the phone.
We only learn from our failures.
Right, but you have to pick up the phone and just start making phone calls and saying, like, how do I meet this person? And how do I get this done?
Yeah.
And so that's what you're doing. You're just starting to knock on doors.
I'm definitely of the philosophy. It doesn't matter what I do as long as I'm doing something.
Right.
Not everything's going to work out. It's trial and error. You know, I mean, and I'll just put it out to the universe and put myself in a position to get lucky.
Right.
That's all it is. You know?
Doing the next right thing.
Yeah, just show up, do the work, try to let go of the results.
When you, for people to understand, when you decided to do your first movie, did you just start like calling people and saying like, who do you guys know in the movie business?
No,
because I want to invest. I want to start as like a quiet investor.
I knew 2 guys in the movie business.
Okay, just through like growing up and living.
Well, one was a friend of my mom's. His name was Danny A.
Okay.
And he was a club promoter turned movie producer, actor, director. Really talented guy.
Right.
And I reached out to him and I said, Danny, I'm going to start a production company. And he's like, good luck. He gave me some advice, and I reached out to this guy, John Bennett, who I had known through my best friend, and he had worked in and out of the movie business, a lot in his life, and next thing you know, I started getting scripts in my inbox. I started sitting down with directors and producers and just kind of learning and figuring it out as I went along. That lasted a few months until I made my first movie, which was The Clapper, with Ed Helms, Amanda Seyfried, Adam Levine, Tracy Morgan, and Russell Peters.
Did you have other investors come in with you on the project?
Yeah. So I was just.
So you raised money.
I was the one.
Giving the money.
Yeah. Me and this lovely woman, DG Geyer.
Okay.
We were the 2 investors in that project. Directed by Dido Montiel, and and that was my first entrance into the movie business. The Clapper, which was 2 years ago last May, so about 2.5 years.
So you've done quite a few films just in the last 2.5 years. I thought that was done like years ago. The Clapper.
No.
So you just got into movies a few years ago.
Yeah, we filmed it 2 years ago this past June.
Unbelievable. So you've been in the movie business about 4 years then.
I got the idea to start the company about 3 years ago now.
And it's called Living the Dream.
Month.
It's called Living the Dream.
Films.
So you're coming up to the anniversary of the idea of
yeah, and then I think I incorporated it in April of next April will be 3 years when I incorporated.
And the last film that you just did was
The Public.
And whose film is that? Tell everybody about that.
So we just premiered. We had a gala presentation of The Public
at the Toronto Film Festival.
At the Toronto International Film Festival, showing this weekend, Friday, tomorrow, at the Hampton International Film Festival.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's a great movie.
Who's in the movie?
So it's Emilio Estevez, Alec Baldwin, Taylor Schilling, Anthony Wright, Michael K. Williams.
Huge all-star
Jenna
cast.
Malone. I mean,
huge.
Yeah.
The cast is amazing.
And he did a great job. I mean, it really is. You know what? They entertained me. And I'm not saying that because it's my movie. I'm not an easy critic. I don't think.
Right.
But they did a good job.
And Emilio Estevez wrote the film.
He wrote, directed, produced. Yep. He was all in. He was all in.
How did you get hooked up with Emilio?
Through some producers out in LA that I did The Clapper with. They were
said,
on
hey,
this as well.
You should talk to this guy.
Yep. Yeah. And they brought me in, Alex and Ponce, it was, and yeah, I mean, he made entertaining content. You know, and he told a story I believe that needed to be told.
About homelessness.
Yeah, it's you know, homelessness during a cold snap in Ohio, and they, you know, the homeless people hang out in libraries. I didn't know that.
Yes.
And which makes perfect sense.
Of course.
And you know, there weren't enough shelters, so they plan a sit-in, you know, an Occupy Wall Street type sit-in, peaceful demonstration, and because they don't want to go outside and freeze to death, you know. And then it brings,
which they do. I don't know the statistic, but homeless people die every single year by freezing to death.
Yeah, exposure.
Oh yeah, huge.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you know, the movie escalates where it's you know, Christian Slater's character who wants to run for mayor as the DA, and he wants the cops to go in with tear gas and SWAT and, you know, just arrest the homeless men, and you got Emilio Estevez's character who's the librarian,
right,
who's kind of in the middle, like, you know, and Alec
And
Baldwin, who is the police negotiator.
right.
Dealing with Estevez and the homeless group inside the library, and then you have an aspect of like the news, where there's a news journalist
Yes.
for this small Ohio news station, and she's spinning the story as like a hostage situation.
Right.
You know, which is totally untrue.
Right.
Even after she's been given video of what's going on
Wow.
inside.
So he touches upon like
Yeah.
how journalists have a responsibility.
Yeah, and
Right.
then you know,
And we can
and
change
then
the tide of public
have,
opinion.
you know, and then you have this very moving moment where like the community sees the news and see what's going on, and they start showing up in carloads, dropping off donations
Yeah.
for the people inside, and the tension's growing because, you know, at some point, you know, the police are gonna go in and knock down those doors and crack some heads and pull them out.
People are gonna get arrested.
You know, and it's that whole, you know,
tension.
yeah, and you know, it's also the life story of the people that are in it, and you know, and what's going on in their lives that brought them to this moment. And it's just it's a very entertaining movie that, you know, they just did such a great job between, you know, the acting, the directing, the storytelling. They entertained me. You know, it's a 2-hour movie that went by like that for me.
Was it the first time you saw it up at Toronto?
No,
I
had seen a couple of versions of it, and honestly, it got better every time.
Yeah.
You know, the little nuances that they do in the editing room are absolutely magical. And you know, Jenna Malone has some great lines in it. You know,
she's awesome. Yeah,
there are so many good, smart, snappy one-liners in the movie, and I love that. Like, you know, that quick, you know, wit banter and.
So what happens now? What happens now with the film?
So we talked to distributors about getting a theatrical release, hopefully, and
you've learned this entire new world. Like, you just kept learning.
Yeah.
You just put yourself in it, and you're like, I'm just going to figure out how this whole thing works.
Yeah.
The movie industry.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
It could be a very expensive lesson if I'm not as smart as I think I am. But you know, right now I'm doing all right.
But you have like an interesting theory about money, that like you can just make more of it. I think that's what you said to me. Like, if you lose money on films, I'm like, what do? You're like, you just make more.
I'm a worker.
You're a worker. You'll just keep going back at it.
Yeah, and I have a pain threshold because I'm still a little young. I'm still like kind of like.
Right.
I got a little hustle left, you know.
Right. You don't have to be saving.
I'll go back and wash dishes if I have to.
And if you don't take the shot now, when are you going to do it?
Exactly. And I'll make sure the rent.
There's nothing worse than the regret of not trying. I live every day with this ticking clock behind me that it's coming to an end, even though I believe in an afterlife. So this experience is coming to an end how I know it. But my whole life, people ask me, like, why are you so driven? Why do you do so much? It's like, because I hear that ticking of the clock all the time. And I want to get as much done as I can while I'm here.
Yeah, I don't get that.
You don't get that?
No, I'm just,
I
swear to you, it's my nature. It's never about why, it's always about why not.
Right.
And because.
Well, it makes me ask why not.
And truth be told, you know, everything's not going to work out, but I'm going to be okay.
Right.
You know, I'm healthy. My kid's healthy. Everything else.
I know.
You know,
None of it
matters.
Always go back to that.
And I'll always work. Like, as long as I'm healthy, I'll go back to washing dishes. I'll make sure the rent's paid. I'll make sure there's food on the table. I mean, you know, if I ever fail, it won't be for lack of trying.
And that's how we're going to end it. Ray, thank you so much
for
coming
having
on today.
me.
This was so great. Come here.
Good
Thank
times.
you. Good times.
Peace.
We're going to see what's coming up for you soon, right? I think big things, dude.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Unscripted with Nell Daly. If you could right now, we need you to head on over and review us on iTunes. As always, we will personally reach out and thank each and every one of you who do so, but we'd love your reviews, so tell us what you think. And you can always send us emails with either guests you want on the show or comments or questions. We're happy to get those, and you can find those on the website, our contact information at nelldaly.com. To see all of my comings and goings, get updates on who our next guests are going to be, and if you just need a little bit of extra life advice or inspiration, come join me over on Instagram at Nell Daly. I use Instagram every single day. Or like us over on Facebook, and you'll automatically be following us, and that's at Nell Given Daily. That's also where you can watch us live. Before I end, I want to thank our audio editor, Walter Eggers, our video editor and co-producer, Paige McGovern, and our video production manager, Rick Endiver, co-producer, Corey Pakowski, and the rest of the Point Zero Media team. I couldn't do any of this without you. I couldn't. Of course, Teachable HQ, you guys rock. They're an amazing educational technology company. Check them out. I use them. Everybody big in the business uses them. They're just awesome. And a huge shout out of gratitude. Huge, the biggest, to all the fans who are following the show. Just like I said last week, I am so humbled by how this is all going. Thank you. Until Monday, everybody, peace out. Have a fun and safe weekend. I love you guys already.